Today's weapon refined video can be summed up with the following clip.
Let them go!
Let them all go? But Mars!
There's no...
Hey guys, welcome to a brand new video featuring June 2020 weapon refines. So, here we are. To kind of sum this one up, there are no real winners from this batch, but there are definitely some interesting refines if examined very closely. So I'm gonna try to kind of show that off in today's video. I'll give a build that I feel best suits every character, depending on whether you've invested them or not, and where you should consider likely using them, their best places. So we'll start off by actually looking at the refines and weapons that a lot of these characters got. To start it all off, we'll start off with Donal. But before I say this, don't feel obliged to invest in these units. Make sure that you've either already invested into them or you like the character, because honestly, none of these are really going to stand out too much. But maybe you'll get some ideas to use these units to the best potential that you can. So, Donnie. Donnie gets an upgrade to his Brave weapon. Unfortunately, that's not the ideal way to use Donnie, because his stat spread has always been just kind of like balanced, like even stat spread, and usually those type of stat spreads do well with like tanking or enemy phase builds. So unfortunately he got a Brave weapon, but the Brave weapon can be used in certain content and will likely make him stand out in those types of content, or if we have a meta shift where Brave weapons are vital for success. There are definitely some places I use and have seen good usage of Brave weapons, and the fact that it has like an impact effect is really good, since impact definitely is very annoying for most players to play into. Next up is Clarisse's bow. Now, most people probably look at this and see the support partner condition and foe cannot counterattack and think like Layla, but don't forget the difference between this and Layla is Layla has like a swap effect, and that's like setting up your carry unit, so she acts like a support. Clarisse is not a support, okay, that's the first thing I'll mention, but this refine does make her stand out in quite a nice way. She has attack and speed smoke built into her base effect, and savage blow plus like a mini poison strike on the effect that she attacks. So the base effect's actually pretty good, and the additional effect is pretty nice, and I'll get into why it's actually pretty nice. At first impression, I didn't think much of this refine, but it probably is the sleeper winner of this batch, and I'll explain why further in the video, of course. Next up is Great Flame. Now, Great Flame just pretty much got buffed. Instead of having a 4 difference condition, it's just 1, and that's really good, since Myrrh wasn't really winning those checks anyways. Thankfully, this will make it far more consistent. So the second part, the actual weapon refine part, is probably the winner of this batch if you just look at it just from the simplicity of it. It's pretty much null follow-up as long as you have an ally nearby, and that's pretty easy to do, plus a bunch of extra stats, which synergize obviously pretty well with her base effect. So really good effect. The only problem is it's on Myrrh, and Myrrh is weak to arrows and dragon weakness. But despite that, she has pretty good stat spread and probably can even take effective damage pretty well without falling over, and the fact that she has like null follow-up is really good, like super good. People won't be able to kind of contest her if you combine her base effect and this null follow-up effect. It's like the winner of this refines for sure. It's a shame it's on 5-star exclusive, it's a shame it's on a dragon, but it's still pretty good, and with the right setup she can be used pretty well too. Moving on, we got Drog. What? It's pretty much carrot cudgel with just a little bit of like a daunt effect on the base, which is like if you attack into me, you're weaker, and you can't really debuff me. I still get my stats as long as I'm protecting someone. It's whatever. I'm not super impressed by this, to be honest with you guys. There was a buff to these weapon effects though, which was like they weren't working against Broadleaf or anyone else who had penalty effects. Now it kind of removes that. Drog is an interesting unit, pretty much has a good stat spread besides res, but res is pretty important and therefore will hold him back, plus he's an armor. So not the greatest of honestly, it's not that impressive. I mean, Carrot Cudgel it's basically like a better Carrot Cudgel, so it doesn't really make him stand out much. Okay, so that pretty much takes care of the weapon refines. If you need to review them, they'll be all under me. Let's actually just jump into builds. So first up is what I consider probably one of the better uses of a Brave Lance weapon and preference effect, which is Donnie's weapon here. I think that he's ideally suited to be in Gale Force teams. Now, Gale Force is interesting when used with Brave weapons because you kind of have like two conditions to get this kind of Gale Force going. So if you have Heavy Blade, and as long as you get one pulse, so the ideal partner already that I would give for Donal is just having like a bonus Asker. A bonus Asker gets that bonus unit stats, the extra HP, so it doesn't matter if it's Alphonse, not ideally Shrena, but Anna for sure is pretty good with this. And a bonus Asker can put Donal at 4 charge, and with 4 charge you pretty much have two conditions to do this. You either engage, and if you win the attack check, of course with some merges, more investment, buffs and such, it's not that difficult. Donnie does have a good attack stat, and his weapon gives him extra attack on top of this. So you attack twice. If you attack once and you win the heavy blade check, it's a 2 charge. If you hit twice, you don't win the attack check, then you've charged it again by 2. If you win the attack check and hit twice, it's pretty much already ready. So there's a lot of conditions which this works in your favor. If it doesn't proc on the first hit, or you need 2 hits but you don't win the attack check, a single dance will almost for sure guarantee a Gale Force on the follow-up, which is really good. And when you use them on light season with like Peony, or maybe in an Air Force composition using Wings of Mercy, this does become pretty good of a choice. Donal actually ends up having some synergy with this and some fair amount of consistency. You'll have to juggle infantry pulses and certain HP conditions to make this work, but I think this is honestly one of his better places now, if you choose to use this preference weapon, of course. Second way that I do see Donnie being used is likely just on defense as a melee unit. So probably using ground orders on him, like being hit by ground orders or legendary Azura or something like that. What you can kind of do is make him from a backline rally trap unit. He comes in, rallies, gets danced, and creates some insane amount of pressure that is very difficult to contest. Now, it might look like a meme to see sturdy impact plus his weapon having impact, but what this does is like just shuts down impact, shuts down QR. QR just doesn't work against this. He does hard lose to null follow-up, but null follow-up tanks aren't the most common thing you'll see. You'll definitely see a lot of QR tanks. So to say basically I ain't losing to QR tanks, you just run double impact and they can't do anything. There's definitely good alternatives too. I mean, you could speed stack them a little bit, maybe with like Sparrow 3, attack speed push, attack defense push. These are all good alternatives as well. Maybe even a lull speed defense, for instance, all really good synergy with his weapon, and it'll create some really good pressure. If he gets 2 charges of infantry pulse hitting him, maybe from like a frontliner, high HP unit, and the dancer, then he would have 1 charge bonfire, which almost always fires off. If he does an Ignis, it is insane amount of damage. So again, I kind of said like a meta shift because this melee rally traps aren't really that good, and like the only exception to this rule is probably Elwood. So honestly, he doesn't really have a good place, but he can definitely find his way in there, maybe depending on what mythics or such we get in the future. I would keep your eyes on this guy. Moving on, we got Clarisse. Now this is where I feel Clarisse truly stands out and is probably not considered. But the thing with using this properly is gonna be partner, okay? She really wants someone who has like sabotage defense, maybe a Versa for like mini defense debuffs, and what I think would be her ideal partner, and this is really difficult to get, but Nephany as a dancer plus the fortune bow from New Year's Anna. This is very specific, but basically you need some defense debuffs because your weapon applies attack and speed smoke. And you look at this, and the thing is, with a single dance from Peony, you can do pretty much 42 splash damage to the enemy team, plus no counterattack. So she can easily hit into frontliners that would honestly either be really resilient or might kill her back with like a Vantage or something. Sometimes you might see like a distant counter Vantage sell-off on the front line. She doesn't care because of her weapon effect. Like, you still need that partner nearby, But if you have it nearby, like let's say Peony, honestly it's probably Peony, you hit that unit for free, probably kill it from all the extra attack you get, and then when you follow up, you've splashed the enemy team for pretty much 42 damage. I mean, Savage Blow C, Savage Blow Seal, and Savage Blow kind of built into her weapon, 21 on the first hit, 42 on the second. If you have a Bolt Tower, or someone like Fallen Takumi or Halloween Hector, there are not many teams that have about 50 plus HP, let's be real. So despite her having fairly low attack, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know, like, this is how I would feel is she has best use on your team. But the thing is, like, you probably already should have invested in Clarisse to do this. So for you guys that love Clarisse, this is how you're gonna do it. She needs some specific support or setups, but if you have it like this, it's solid. Next up, we got Myrrh. Now, Myrrh is unfortunately 5-star locked. So being 5-star locked, I'm gonna just put in like a build here that is just +1. Remember, every build I showcase applies the mythics in some way. So Air, Mila, and Peony are distributed among these units in some manner to help them work. For example, Anna's probably using Air and Peony, Nefany might be using Air and Peony, or Mila and Air for such. Myrrh is using like Mila and Air probably because defensive buffs are what you want. So anyways, this is Myrrh here, and Myrrh is actually pretty good. Now that she only has like a 1 defense check condition with just a little bit of support behind her, combined with like Mila as a partner, and of course Corrin. Corrin is the staple ally support unit from the back. You could even be using double drive defense to really get that check in. So she'll pretty much never lose the Great Flame check with the right support, and that makes her pretty consistent. You do have to unfortunately waste your seal on an IELTS shield. You could maybe not run it, but if you see an Alm, then you're not going to be able to use Myrrh. If you do run IELTS shield, then she can challenge Myrrh pretty well. The existence of Alm unfortunately will require her to run that. Pulse Smoke is a decent C option, but maybe you want to be tanking from far away. The more merges you give her, the better she stands out, and honestly the kind of consistent general winner of these refines. Although I do feel like both Donnie and Clarisse may find use later on if the meta develops as such. Finally, probably the biggest loser of the refines is pretty much Carrot Cudgel Mr. Drog. I don't really have much to say. If you're going to use Drog, you probably should use him in Arena, and if you already have a Drog, then great. He's just going to be slightly upgraded due to his refine. Best place I find him being used is going to be on Fire paired up with Edelgard. Due to his refine now, you can give him Armor March if he runs a 300 SP A skill like Distant Counter. Edelgard appreciates another armor with Armor March because she has to remove Armored Stride to score optimally because of Raging Storm and a level 4 A skill required. So Drog pairs up pretty nicely with Edelgard. He's not ideal scoring anymore though because of other competitive options. Itsuki, Astrom are going to be probably better than him, and Ross, Echidna, and Mustafa recently are also going to be more common and such. So Drog's not the ideal investment nowadays, but I guess if you like to suffer, then invest in the Gentle Giant, right? He does okay on Fire season. He beats most Fire matchups. He shouldn't have any problem with Celica or Roy if built that way, and synergizes with Edelgard pretty well. So not much to really say about him, honestly. With that being said, please let me know what you think of these weapon refines in the comments below, and who are you honestly waiting for on a weapon refine? Me, I'm waiting for Cecilia because I like calves and I like teachers, and I'm a teacher, so Cecilia refine when. Thanks guys, give the video a thumbs up, sub to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.